Welcome to NewYorkBIO's virtual breakfast series, a digital program launched in 2020 featuring fireside chats with leaders from across the healthcare spectrum. In this episode, we feature Maria Abouseif and Darby Starnes from TriNet talking about the four truths about hiring.
All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Jennifer Hawks-Bland, and I'm the CEO at New York Bio. We're thrilled to welcome you back to another of our virtual breakfast series. As most of you know, this year we've decided to mix in panel discussions with individual guests in our traditional fireside chat format. So we are bringing you lots of different content. And one of the things, obviously, as you know, New York Bio brings you interesting content. We're really it's important that we engage with you and have discussions about current events and things that are important to our biotech industry. But one of the other components that is very important for New York Bio is to provide a discount program for our members. And so we offer partnerships with different companies, everything from shipping to lab supplies. And one of our newest partners is TriNet, and they provide HR solutions. And so we thought that it would be really good and frankly, very timely. In the New York market, we've talked about space for years now. And now that we have more space and we have more availability for companies to locate here, clearly we need to talk about hiring. And so today we have Darby and Maria from TriNet, and we're going to talk about the 5 truths in hiring. So I'm going to turn it over to Derek to specifically introduce our guest. But before that, we follow our same format. And you can ask questions in the Q&A or in the chat boxes. So please use those and ask all of your hiring questions as we go through the discussion. Derek, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. So Darby and Maria, good morning. It's lovely to have you both here with us. Especially Maria, you get extra kudos and an extra cup of coffee this morning. We treat our West Coast guests with nothing but extreme appreciation. Thank you so much for being here. So we usually tend to kick off our fireside chat style things with a little bit of what we like to call an origin story. But why don't you guys take a couple minutes and give us just a little bit of background and maybe kind of the things that excite you about being in the biotech industry and helping people build companies.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, Derek and Jennifer, thank you so much for having us. As Jennifer introduced us, so I'm Maria Abouseif. I lead the life sciences vertical at TriNet, and super excited about this new partnership with New York Bio and how that will allow us to expand even our support for the entire life sciences ecosystem in New York. For me and for us at TriNet, we're really our mission, and we're very passionate about helping life sciences really focus more on patient outcomes and driving innovation and really less on their HR needs. So that's really what gets me going every day. What excites me the most when I get up in the morning is, how do we help those entrepreneurs and really small to medium-sized life sciences organizations really grow and thrive and really worry less about things that they probably didn't get into the sciences business for.
Yeah. And I agree with Maria. So my name is Darby Starnes. Thanks so much for having me. So I'm the manager of learning and development. And what gets me up is I have been with TriNet for over 12 years. I absolutely love to help small to mid-sized businesses, especially the biotech industry. Just as Maria said, I know y'all don't get up in the morning and say, yes, let's do HR today. No, this is about what you want to do and about getting to your passion and about what clinical trials might be available, or what are you working on and how does that look? I mean, real stuff in your lab that might be going on. You might be looking at supply chain issues. So we want to help with that by taking on those HR needs that you might have and helping you with those and partnering with you to grow and get your business to where you want it to be so that you can concentrate on what you want to concentrate on. So that's why we're here, and we're could not be more excited to talk to you about the 4 truths about hiring today.
Oh, sorry,
Okay.
I added an extra one.
And we can add another one in. It's all right.
There's a There's a New York truth in there somewhere. There's always has to be a little extra special for New York. So
you need to train Jennifer to remember the right number of truths in the webinar.
Yeah, no, the fifth truth is going to have something to do with like the commute, right? You know,
Yeah.
so you talk about how people on the west side can get over to the Alexandria Center in the quickest way possible, or which train routes are better. That's the fifth truth when you get into New York. Okay, so should we queue up your slides here?
That would
Yeah,
be great.
let's do it.
We can do that. Okay.
And I'm going to go off video while you're presenting, and then I'll be back.
All right.
For Q&A.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen.
Who TriNet is. So TriNet is a professional employer organization. So we provide full service HR solutions to small and medium-sized businesses. And we really tailor those solutions by industry. We've been in the market for over 30 years and support over 18,000 small to medium-sized businesses and over 340,000 worksite employees. So for life sciences, if we can go to the next slide.
Yep. Hold on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, we're okay. We're getting
so
it. Here we go.
No problem. So if we can go to the next slide. Just to talk a little bit about the life sciences focus and practice that we have a little bit. So through the PEO model, the companies that we work with, our life sciences clients, really leverage the economies of scale that we provide. And we really help them in those, three key areas. One is, really access to full suite of HR solutions that are tailored not only to the life sciences industry, but also tailored to the stage that they're in. So we work with companies from really early stage to preclinical to late stage, pre-IPO, post-IPO, and commercial stages. And what's really important is that, one, we really help them design and implement a complete benefits program, so really access to premium benefits that can really help them attract and retain talent across multiple states, wherever they are in the US, and certainly in New York, to really build that A team and be able to drive their growth. Second, we really provide HR expertise and guidance to help them with all things HR, particularly federal and state laws that are ever changing, so that they can really focus on their business and less on their HR. Third, we provide risk mitigation services as well as payroll services, and then real-time technology applications that really span the gamut of recruiting, onboarding, automated onboarding, paperless HR, as well as just the entire employee life cycle. If you think about learning and development, if you think about performance management, and other applications that are really pertinent to their organization, so that they can have a view of their employee, a 360 view of their entire employee life cycle, and be able to drive analytics so that they can drive smarter decisions within their organization. So studies have shown that through this PEO model and partnering with our life sciences companies throughout their stages, they're really able to attract and retain talent, really accelerate growth, and scale much more efficiently. So on average, about 27% really higher return on investment than the traditional HR models. So going really to the topic of today's session, if we can go to the next slide. So we really wanted to kick off our discussion, especially again with our new partnership with NewYorkBIO that we're very privileged to do, is really around kind of the race for talent. And while each company that we see and we come across has slightly different set of unique challenges when it comes to talent acquisition and talent retention, we really find a common theme when it comes to life sciences. Number one, it's a very competitive market. And, companies come to us and say, how can you help me really attract, the right talent? How can you help me be more competitive? How can you help me, build a brand and really be able to, tap into that competitive talent that I need to grow? And what we found from various surveys is that over 50% of CEOs and executives really admit a number of difficulties when it comes to attracting and retaining the right people within this industry. And when you couple that with a pretty lengthy, sort of number of days to fill a non-executive position, so on average taking over 105 days, you can really sense how fierce, the race for talent is. And really coming off of a strong year for the industry in 2020 with record IPOs, especially in biotech, and really continued focus on therapeutics, diagnostics, digital health, and so forth. We haven't really seen sort of the turnover taper off in the industry. So with over about 14.5% average turnover, really, again, it's become more and more critical for the organizations that we work with to say, what can we do better? What can we strategically do to really not only attract and the right talent, but also engage them in a way to keep them here for the long haul. So with that, it's really my pleasure again to introduce our subject matter expert in this area, Darby Starnes, who oversees our learning and development here at TriNet and really works with hundreds of our clients to help them answer some of those key questions. So Darby, I will pass it over to you so that you can kick us off for this webinar.
Great. Thanks so much. Thanks again, Jennifer, Derek, Maria, and everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. So, it's interesting. So I already see some chats going on, and I love the perspective, and I love the enthusiasm. And I promise you, I think it was David who I saw the chat come up, who asked, is there only 4 truths? Maybe there's 5. And David, there's actually a lot of truths for today. And yep, that's the right slide, Derek. We're in the right place. There's a lot of truths about it, but I only have so much time, and if you let me, I'll speak with you for hours about this. So I'm trying to tailor it down to just the 4 truths for today. And I did see some other chats already about, why does the company want to work for me? And that is one of the most important questions that you can ask. So let's get into it and let's talk about this today, because we're talking about your intention about having a talent management philosophy for your company. So this is about getting strategic with your process to ensure that you have the right people and that you're optimizing the talent for success. So we're going to go through why hiring is important. We'll talk about those 4 truths. Of course, there are a lot more than that. We'll just keep it to 4 today, though. And then we'll get into some key takeaways. All right. So, and I also see someone asking about, some backgrounds and some histories of Maria and myself, and we can certainly get to that if we need to as well. Just know that both of us are very experienced in HR and happy to be here with you to be talking about this. So let's go to the next one. We have a great quote from Bill Gates. So let's go to the next slide here. And what's important about this is that, as most of you know, hiring is one of the important things as an entrepreneur that you can do to grow your company. So each new hire has a tremendous impact on the success of your company. And also this person will influence your company's culture far than larger companies who may be, kind of blended in as a number. When you have a smaller company, people are more visible, right? There are more optics on what's going on. So as you're thinking about growing, ensure that each of your new hires is passionate, that they're engaged, that they're aligned with your company goals. Because as we talked about earlier, this probably isn't something that you get up and you're energized about, right? This is what we do instead. But it is important because many founders spend too little time on recruiting the right people, but it's critical to hire those great people, especially in the early stages as you're growing your company or as you continue to scale and grow. So let's go to the next one and dig a little bit more into this here, because before we get into why hiring is so critical for your business, let's take a real look at what we mean by bad hiring decision, because you're going to hear me say that a couple times today, and how a bad hiring decision impacts the employee experience, your culture, turnover, and bottom line costs. So what I mean by a bad hiring decision is it means that the employee doesn't meet expectations on several levels. So they start with the company and it becomes clear pretty early on that the person wasn't the best hire. And hiring mistakes, unfortunately, if they're kept on and not dealt with right away, can really erode morale and erode productivity with your employees. So if we look at this quote from entrepreneur.com in a recent article, it's from the Norway's men's skis team. And it helps us to understand why hiring decisions are important to the employee experience, to your culture, and your organization's reputation. So as you can see, it says if you have teammates who consistently lift you up, then the environment will make you happy. You'll work harder and stay motivated. You're giving yourself your best chance to win. So this quote is about elevating the team morale and creating the culture that reflects who you are as an organization. And if you don't know, it's a good thing to find out. So there are also hard to quantify costs, such as employee morale, customer dissatisfaction. It could be lost customers or lost consumers. And anytime someone is let go from the company, there will always be some discussion from the existing employees about what caused the termination. Was it performance? Why did they go? Did they find something better? David, to your point earlier, what was the workload increasing? Was it just too much? And we're going to, touch on that in a little bit. But it's really important that we understand that in today's world, more than ever, your organization's reputation is on display immediately. So it's imperative to prevent poor hiring decisions from becoming an outlet for former or current employees to air grievances, which can impact your reputation as a company. Sorry about that. I couldn't get the word out. That happens. So, and if we look at this from a statistics point of view, according to Harvard Business Review, as much as 80% of employee turnover is due to bad hiring decisions. 80%. That's a lot. So, for the next statistic, and this number varies between studies, just to let you know, because there are many variables, but according to the Society for Human Resources Management, or SHRM, it can cost up to 5 times a bad hire's annual salary. And the higher the person's position and the longer they remain in that position, the more the cost to replace that person will go up. Also, the impact on the business as well, because there are expenses associated with hiring that drive up costs, right? So it's not so much about travel nowadays because a lot of us are remote, but we have remote equipment, we have training, we have orientation. We might have some relocation involved. And when you replace a bad hire with another candidate, you have to repeat those costs again, but not to mention your own time. And that's not what you want to spend your time doing, right? You want to spend your time on what you're doing and what you're passionate about. So as a smaller company, if we could move to the next slide, it would be awesome. Thank you. As a smaller company, you have some advantages over the bigger companies. So to hire the right people, though, you must have the right hiring strategy. And what does that mean? That means with starting with a sound hiring and interview process. It is absolutely imperative. And we're going to get to that later. But companies you need to know that having that right hiring strategy will help you to be a differentiator in your company. So what do I mean by that? So big pharma has many resources, right? They have a 1,000-person company, and that's a little bit different from an early to growth stage life sciences company, right? Because you may not be able to build your brand as easily or your community awareness. You may not have that 1,000-person army behind you, right? But large international companies also may have a luxury of recruiting some different geographic talent. But as a small company, you know what you have going for you? You have your nimbleness, you have your agility, which means a lot. So, with preclinical to commercial companies, you should have a different hiring strategy that embraces what's unique about you, and that's your nimbleness and that's your agility, because it's so much easier for you to be agile. You can make decisions quickly. You can include, potential job modifications that are needed. Even as the hiring process is going on, you may identify a fantastic candidate during the process and decide that there may be even a better role and you would like to expand that role. Now, larger companies, they might want to focus on reducing costs and improving efficiency. But for a small to mid-sized business, you want to focus on improving that quality of hire because hiring that right candidate will have the bigger impact on your company's success. Because remember, we talked about the optics and the impact, it being much larger as a smaller company as you're making these critical hires to your organization. So now let's get into the four truths. And of course, again, lots more than four here. But for today, it's all the time that we have. So let's get into it a little bit more. So we have some great statistics to share with you. So, according to the study by LinkedIn, the biggest roadblock candidates face when changing jobs is knowing what they really like about the company, right? So usually there isn't enough information out there about smaller companies and the candidates doesn't know, do they want to apply? How do they find out more? How do they stay interested during the interview process? But really it's about what's in it for them. What is the company going to do for them? So they want to know. So you also want to understand how to get that information out there for candidates to find more about you because candidates want to know what is your culture? What are your values? What are the perks and benefits? What's your mission and vision? And that really helps to shape how the candidate views you and how they come to you and know whether they want to apply, whether they want to be part of your organization. Because today's talent is examining a company's response to diversity, equity, inclusion, and current events as a determining factor on their willingness to partner with you as employers. You know, I can't say it enough. Your culture is immediately on display from the recruiting process through the entire employment life cycle. And honestly, I say the recruiting process, and it actually starts before then. It starts with people even being interested in looking at what's out there and trying to find more information about you. And cultures that embrace DE&I and belonging and make people feel respected and valued for who they are as an individual or a group see a change. They see top talent being attracted to them as a company because the process of inclusion engages each individual and makes people feel valued as being essential to the success of the organization. And evidence shows that when people feel valued, they function at higher capacity and they feel part of the organization's mission. They want for you. They want to be part of innovative that you have. They want to be part of that upskilling and being competitive. They want to know, how to be loyal to your company and what that looks like. Because this kind of culture shift creates a higher performing organization where that motivation, where innovation and where morale soar. People are attracted to you as a business, but also attracted in wanting to work together towards what's next. That innovation. How do we knock on that door and break down barriers? How do we change the world? So let's talk about what else that we can do. And I see that David has something else in the chat there, and I promise you I'll get to that. I do. So during the hiring process, a candidate will likely talk to various people in your organization, right? Because you might have a hiring manager, you want to have candidate and peers, you might have some stakeholders, talk about your organization as well. So back to David's original question in the chat, why would someone want to come work for you? And if you could go forward one slide, Derek, that would be great. And it's important to explain what makes you different. Why would someone come work for you and be part of your company? Organizations are competing not only for market share, but also for employees. Employees want to work for an employer that will upgrade their skill to keep them competitive with peers and other companies. So, what does that look like for you? How do you tell people what you're doing? How are you telling people what makes you different? What does the culture of your organization really look like? And that may come in the form of clarifying your vision and strategy, sharing information about the your strategy, your strategic vision, the ambitions of the company, and how this roles really plays a factor in achieving that vision. How do they, from day one, how are they going to add value? Why are they sitting in the interview seat? What is it that you saw in them that you wanted to bring them in to talk to them about the value that they could add? And then align career opportunities with candidate development and advancement. Again, employees want to work for an employer that will upgrade their skills and keep them competitive. They want to be innovative. They want to be part of that advancement of what's next. All right. So that's enough about the truth number one. So we want to get into truth number two here, which is that company reputation. So we talked about this just a minute ago, but company reputation is extremely important factor when candidates are researching a company. So as seen from these statistics, a company with a bad reputation is strong enough to turn candidates, good or bad, away. So when a company with an excellent reputation is strong enough to attract candidates to consider leaving their current job. So bottom line, company reputation is so important, and especially in this day and age. So what can we do about that? So if we'll go to the next one, it's about building your employer brand. It's about being true to who you are. And if you don't know who you are, I have to challenge you. Get familiar, have the tough conversations, have the courageous conversations with yourself and your company. Find out who you are. Because according to the CEO of Career Realism, which is a Boston based career service, job seekers won't bother applying to a company if they can't find out enough information about the company online. We all want to know what's going on. It's part of our humanness now, it's part of the new normal now. Candidates are becoming more and more tech savvy. I mean, you all know that. And they'll research everything they can about the company before applying. Again, they want to know how they're going to add value. They want to know what it may look like for them to be part of your company. What is it that you're going to do for them, and what can they do for themselves once they're there? And this starts from, the job description, the company, the culture, your values, your mission, your vision. So it's important for you to focus on establishing and developing your brand, especially with social media sites, including employer brand focused sites like Glassdoor. So it's readily accessible by all potential job candidates, and also industry specific sites that you may also be a part of as well. And also in diversity sites such as diversitynetwork.com or diversityjobs.com. There are human rights campaign. There are lots of resources that you can get your employer brand out there to attract that talent that you want. Now, we also touched on the next point in the last section, but again, all people are involved, especially recruiters and hiring manager, must be prepared to have honest conversations about every aspect of the job as well as your company. So this includes the good and the bad. And the more honest and transparent your company can portray itself, the more equipped a candidate will feel when applying for a job at your company. Now, of course, talk about the bad with reason, right? We don't want to disclose or discuss any incidents that may lead to potential legal liability or reputational harm. But what I do mean is be very transparent and honest about what you're doing as a company, how this person would add value, and then also what maybe you're not doing right. Maybe you're hiring this person because they're going to make a change that you want to see in your organization, and you want them to be an instrumental part of that change that you want to see. So talk to them about that. But something else that's really important about the employer brand is also during the hiring process, candidates may be asking different questions than you've ever heard them ask before, such as your response to current events, such as how you're responding to DE&I. What are you doing out there in your community? So you do want to train your hiring managers and all the people in your company to understand what that looks like for your company and how to answer those questions with honesty and transparency. And it's okay if it's a process for everybody, because building a DE&I culture raises the company profile by demonstrating the commitment to value all people and embrace differences as opportunities for advancement. Right? DE&I promotes all people to contribute, which leads to improved decision making through the sharing of ideas and process improvements and innovation. This is about doing the right thing. Now, lastly, we recommend featuring actual employees in the photos and videos to help illustrate your employer brand. Make it about you and your company. Now, I will say video is becoming more popular. I mean, even photos and short blurbs on videos discussing the company culture and key benefits or training opportunities. Again, it's communicating what makes you unique, what makes you you. Why would someone want to be part of your company? And again, if you don't know if you're sending out the right message, ask. So we'll talk about that in just a second. And don't be afraid to ask your employees, ask, create focus groups, ask those top questions, and ask if they want to be part of the voice of being, part of the company. Do they want to be part of attracting that top talent? Get them involved, get them excited and passionate about what's next and how to attract and how to be the change that they want to see in your organization. So building your employer brand. So what about if there are more negative than positive reviews? So let's go to the next slide, and you will see that at the top it says, if there are more negative, thank positive reviews. And so I think that was a Freudian slip on my part about that. So, but what if you are a company that has more negative reviews than positive on social media sites? Well, we note that having more negative than positive reviews isn't necessarily indicative of poor company culture. However, it can be beneficial to independently review your company culture from time to time because, feedback is a gift. And I think that was why it was a Freudian slip for me there. Negative and positive reviews gives you the opportunity to take feedback and understand what people are looking for and decide what that means for your company. So it means, gain a better understanding of how your current employees really view your organization. Remember to take action on that, whether that's through a focus group, could be through an employee engagement survey. Some companies conduct a cultural audit. And this is all about getting a pulse on your organization. So, do employees feel connected to your company? Do they feel connected to the mission and vision? Do employees understand where the company is on the attainment of goals and initiatives, such as DEI and belonging? Do they feel connected to achieving those goals, or do they feel disenfranchised and feel like they're siloed from decisions? So, really, the bottom line is, do they feel connected and valued? So, also look at what does that mean for training and development. If the survey results come back saying that there's a lack of training and development opportunities, then a potential solution would be to offer learning opportunities. There could be job shadowing, could be career coaching, could be mentoring, could be professional networking, or even maybe investing in a learning management system or an LMS, and offer self-service online classes for employees to build their skills. And having a partner like TriNet can also help you to do that and provide you with those resources and those tools so that you can offer some of those benefits and some of those opportunities that maybe only larger companies do. So I'd like to take a raise of hands here, just a show of hands. If you could tell me how many of you on this call have either launched a yearly employee survey or have a really intentional effort on taking a pulse in your organization of what's important to your employees. All right, Derek, can you help me with how many hands are up?
Because of screen sharing, I can't necessarily see it on mine. Let me see what we've got here.
Okay.
We have 6 hands are up.
Okay. And that is 69. So that's okay. So that's about 10%. Appreciate that very much. All right. So we've talked about the first two truths. Now let's talk about the truth number 3 and truth number 4. And I saw a note from Jennifer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through these pretty quickly here. So one of the main things is that okay, and I see that from David. Thank you so much. So one of the things is a lack of standard interview process that will impact the quality of hire. I cannot stress this enough. You have to please be intentional and strategic about your interview process. It has to be part of how you do things in your onboarding and your selection process. So that means taking the time to get it right now. Outline your process, develop documents that help you to streamline your process, help you to interview candidates. And if we can move forward one more, developing this means that establishing who's going to interview the candidate, who needs to be involved in the decision, having a candidate evaluation form, for example, to take notes during the interview so that you can evaluate the candidates after everyone's had a chance to interview. Make sure that everyone that should be involved is involved in that decision-making process so that no one gets caught by surprise. Then if we'll go into the next slide, you can also see that truth number 4 here. So hiring employees in a remote environment impacts the onboarding experience. So you can see many of the statistics. I don't need to read them to you, but these numbers demonstrate the new normal of today's workforce. I mean, a lot of people are working from home. A lot of people are taking what they did in the office and translating that into real measurable results from a whole different environment. So let's move forward to the next slide. So what can you do about this? What does that mean for your recruiting and onboarding process? So there are 3 primary goals when it comes to onboarding. First, you want to get the employee up to speed with what they'll be doing. So what that means is making sure that they have the tools that they need and the access they need to perform their work. And also outline expectations and marks of success. So how are you going to help them understand the value that they provide? How are you going to connect that from day one? Now, second is the socialization of the individual into your organization so they have the opportunity to connect with the people in your organization. What does that mean? That means scheduling calls with people, scheduling meetings with people, helping them to get connected with the organization. Who do they go to with questions? How do they get to know you as a company? How do they get to know the people who they're going to be working with? And that means being intentional about creating that space and that time to connect them. And third, it's important to help the employee understand the impact of their role. So again, what are they doing? How does that connect to the mission and value that they're providing? And how are you giving them regular feedback to keep every single day as they go through, their onboarding process? It could be a 30, 60, 90 day, and even beyond, to make sure, even if it's not every day, but a regular cadence of touching base to let them know how they're doing and what's working and maybe what's not working. But remember to connect the value of what they do back to the mission and vision of the organization. Again, back to David's original question, why would someone come work for you? Because you're connecting their value with the why of your organization. So it connects the why, it connects the what, it connects the how back to what that person is doing for you. So, Derek, we'll wrap it up. If we could just go forward a couple more slides with some key takeaways here. So as you can see, there are 4 key takeaways that will help you to ensure that your talent management process is in alignment with hiring the right people, doing the right things at the right time. If I had to sum up what talent management is and, the hiring process, it's hiring the right people to do the right things at the right time for your organization and what you want to see happen going forward. So with that, Derek, I'm open to taking any questions. I saw Jennifer's note that we needed to
Yeah.
move along so that we can answer some questions. So let's get started with some questions.
All right, let's open back up. I will stop sharing my screen. And here we are, we're back.
So we had several questions that were put in during the chat, and it was funny, I had written down on my page about the 14.5% turnover. And so the question was, how does that compare to other industries? Is that that's life science, right? That was the stat, but how is that in other industries? And the joke is, in some areas of the country with life sciences, all you have to do is go for a cup of coffee and then you get a new job, right? New York is not like that. We're a little more spread out. But the reality is that life sciences is a relatively small community in certain parts of the country.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Maria, do you mind if I take that first and I'll hand it to you?
Sure.
Yeah, so in different industries, we're seeing numbers all over the gamut. And I love what you said though about life sciences, that you can get a cup of coffee, that competitiveness, someone finds out about you and they'd grab and take, right? So, and we see that in some of the technology, some of the more specialized areas there with emerging markets as well. And so we can see that, but then you could also compare that to the restaurant industry, which has right now an 86% turnover rate. So it can absolutely run the gamut, but for specialized and for more technology based in the industries, it it certainly can vary there too. But really, it's about the competitiveness of the market more than it is about those turnover rates, just like you said, Jennifer. And Maria, how about for you? Oh, sorry.
Oh no, actually, I was going to ask Maria then. So when you think about that, like the challenges of hiring, what specifically do early stage and growth company challenges face? And one thing I also want to ask you about is, I've been thinking a lot about what Darby was talking about with reputation. And so embedded in that question of challenges is early stage companies, particularly life science, that may still be in stealth, right? These are not very publicly facing companies. So what steps can they take to make sure their reputation is out there with potential hires without violating their need to continue to do their work in quiet until they're ready to be more public?
Sure. No, I mean, I think that's an excellent question. So, a lot of the early stage companies that we work with are sort of, in this dilemma, like they need to attract top talent from either academia or other, big pharma. So I would say, that's where kind of a service like a PEO or like a TriNet can really, help them kind of provide the look and feel of a big company while they're still fairly small. So the idea of a professional employer organization is that, we help them sort of build really a total rewards package when it comes to perks and benefit options, to really be able to help them say, hey, we've got all of these things from not only medical benefits, voluntary benefits, retirement. A lot of them are thinking beyond just stock options and competitive salary, and saying, here's my total sort of company feel, if you will, and benefits that I can offer you as an employee coming on board, to be able to sort of just level the playing field with the big pharma and the academia. As far as reputation and sort of what they're all about, it's really often in that stage. When we're privileged to work with many different entrepreneurs and founders, it's really about the mission, right? What are they trying to do? I mean, we all know. I mean, I've been in healthcare for over 20 years, between healthcare and life sciences, and there hasn't been a more exciting time than now, quite frankly, with just the ability to transform our healthcare system and be able to drive more innovation, and really be able to deliver, very kind of innovative therapies to the marketplace that impact patients' lives. So I think at that stage, it's really important, as Darby had mentioned, to really articulate what the mission is. Why do they exist? What are they trying to achieve? And be able to take, their employees on sort of that journey, right? And the candidates that they're trying to hire, and be able to paint that picture of what it could be, right? What that journey could be like. So I think it's a combination of both things. Again, a service like a TriNet, we've had companies grow with us from very, very early, like, 5 employees or even less. And in a couple of years, I see them grow to 50 and 70 employees, right? With the right structure and the right talent in place. And then at the same time, being able to articulate the mission statement and the vision of where they want to go.
So taking that a step further, we hear a lot about how these companies with a handful of employees, between 5 and 8 employees, say we're going to be at 15 or 20 in the next 6 months, right? And now you've got this small core team that's going double or triple in a really short amount of time. So what are some of the things what are some of the things and advice you think about in terms of those situations? Because you're talking about a really small group. You're talking about a lot of effort to build this team, and it all changes like that, right? It's not, the 100-day hiring thing. You can't have that for each of those positions, right? This is something that changes very, very quickly. So how do you talk to organizations about being, I suppose, structurally consistent with an expansion like that? What are some of the things that you talk to companies about that are trying to expand that way?
Darby, do you want me to take that one?
We both can, sure.
Or go ahead. Sure. I mean, I think for a company, looking again to grow as such, I think it's, from a structure perspective, I would say, number one, leverage technology, right? Like, we're in this day and age, especially in this virtual environment. Digitization is not just for the big companies; it's also for smaller and early stage companies, and really have a structure in place that allows you to offer a consistent experience. Number one. And a consistent program for those employees coming in, to be able to facilitate sort of a faster path to growth. And to Darby's earlier point, have a structured interview process, regardless of how you can move quickly, but still leverage technology, leverage automated tools and onboarding practices, and hiring practices to be able to bring them in quickly, but in a structured format where you're ensuring that not only a favorable experience from start to finish, but that you also have a pool of candidates for down the road. Maybe you meet somebody that's not a fit today, but maybe 6 months from now, you have a need for them. So I couldn't stress enough around leveraging technology really early on to be able to drive that experience and that growth forward. And then being able also to look at really diverse talent, right? I think, studies have shown that more diverse talent can really bring and foster innovation and can really accelerate that piece of innovation. So how are you doing, or what are you doing differently to be able to tap into talent that perhaps could be, untapped at the moment? We're no longer sort of bound by really, sort of strict geographies. Is there somebody out there that you can bring in quickly that perhaps doesn't live in the immediate state or the immediate geography, unless you have to go into a lab of some sort? But could you look at more diverse pool of talent across multiple geographies and be able to bring in people rather quickly for that growth? Darby?
Yeah, and I agree with what Maria is saying. And I can't stress it enough to just make sure you're intentional about your process and when you leverage technology, but also understand, as Maria was talking about, how are you communicating with your candidates? How are you being consistent with that communication? How are you introducing them to your company? And how are you training your hiring managers and the stakeholders to be part of that process and being intentional. Because as you're growing, you want to make sure that those are the right hiring decisions so that you're not having to go back to the drawing board, but also that you're building your bench, you're building your benchmark of talent that you have. Ask them where they are in their process. What are their goals? How, would they be open to future opportunities? And I cannot stress enough that also, partnering with somebody like TriNet to help you be compliant with your process is also very important so that you don't accidentally, sabotage yourself in your own hiring process. For example, by not being aware of something like ban the box or by asking questions that are not permitted during the interview process. So, please take an intentional look at that. And partnering with someone like TriNet, we can certainly help you to do that. Not only take advantage of technology, but make sure that you have a streamlined process that's consistent and is compliant and helps you to scale your business so that you can focus on what you want to focus, which is getting that right talent at the door to make an impact to your organization.
Yeah, that's great. And we've had a couple of questions that have some similar themes, basically asking about the benefits of hiring a PEO. And there was one question, and he said, on the surface, PEOs appear to be expensive, but the leverage you provide for small employers is obviously crucial. So, how do you convince skeptical investors or companies that the savings and cost avoidance model are going to be effective for their company? And then along those lines, what specifically should a company look for in a PEO to really help increase your success rate of hires?
Yeah, no, all great questions. So first of all, how do you kind of convince your investors? So we are trying to, part of interacting with any company, we really go through a due diligence and assessment. So part of what my team and I do is really a complete what we call return on investment analysis that's really tailored to that particular company. And a couple of things. One is we typically gather that data and really look not just at today's needs, but where the company is going over the next 3 to 5 years, and be able to comprehensively put together an analysis that really speak to both hard savings, hard dollar costs, as well as soft dollars and efficiencies within the organization. It's one thing to just sort of compare, kind of just costs dollar to dollar, but another to take a step back and say, okay, if I'm an organization today and I really want to move the organization and grow from 10 employees to 20 or 25 employees over the next 18 months, what are some of the processes that I have to put in place? What are some of the systems and the infrastructure? To Darby's point, how can I stay compliant? A lot of times we also convince investors that this is a service that will help not only extend the cash runway for their portfolio companies, but help them maintain compliance, which again, in this day and age, not maintaining compliance could be very, very expensive. When it comes to, let's say you do all the right things when it comes to hiring the right talent, but we're all humans. Sometimes we get it wrong. As a CEO of another biotech company that we work with said, I wanted a partner like a TriNet so that when I do get it wrong, I can have that expertise to rely on to be able to walk me through a very sensitive and difficult situation. You don't want to be a small company and then, be at a risk of getting sued, for instance, for any wrongful termination or harassment or what have you. So these are the types of things that oftentimes people don't think about when they're starting or growing a life sciences company, really focused on the science and so forth. But, we joke and say, you focus on the FDA when we take care of the ACA and all of the other components, so that you can, focus on the science, but at the same time have a partner like a TriNet that really can leverage for growth, and you can leverage to be able to to focus on what you do best.
Yeah. So we're getting close to 10 here, but we'd be remiss if we didn't actually ask about both COVID and remote work. So how have things changed with with COVID? And more specifically, how do you see people adjusting to, really what we think is going to be a transition period, right? We're going to at some point transition from almost fully remote back to, bringing in person back into the office place. How do you see that unfolding, and what kind of steps do you propose that companies take, during that transition period?
Marie, you want me to take that one?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, fantastic. So, one of the things with COVID, I just have to say, more than anything else, is the humanization of the workforce. I mean, we really have. This is about the employee experience. This is about your culture. And if it hasn't been before, it certainly is now. So, one of those things is to look at the flexible work environment and the impact on engagement and talent development. From safety to physical safety, bringing people back to work that may need to come back in, what does that look like in the lab or wherever you are operating, and making sure that the new normal is part of how you bring people back. So we're seeing more, companies offer flexible work environment where maybe there's a shared workspace where some people have if they don't feel safe being together, maybe they have different hours where they can perform the same work, and making sure that you also are asking your employees, what are their top concerns? What do they need to have to come back and be successful? So asking them and then thinking about what that means for you, because you want to keep them connected. You want to keep them engaged. Again, this is about their experience and how they add value in what they're doing for you. And so that also means making sure that you're communicating regularly with your employees, and also planning ahead as much as you can, and investing in your employees, and investing in making those connections in your organization as you may come back with COVID, as there is a new normal. But as you look at your intentional process, make sure that you are absolutely asking your employees what they need to come back and what that looks like for you. And then, of course, partnering with someone like TriNet. I mean, I have to say it again, we can help you with the safety. We can help you with the compliance. We can help you with, what other companies may be doing that's worked, or maybe something that hasn't worked that you can learn from. Maria, how about you?
Yeah, I think I was going to echo the same thing. And we've developed, some really great checklists and tools, to help sort of bring back the employees back to the workforce. And I think we were talking about this earlier. I think we're going to see a little bit of a hybrid of both on-site and remote here for the long haul, quite frankly. And again, leveraging sort of where the organization is going, where these resources best. But the flexible work environment, I think, is here to stay. So it's just as important to plan for bringing back employees as much as it is to plan for continued some form of virtual work, so that you can balance both. And yeah, please call us for all of these questions. We're here to help.
We're very lucky that we have this new partnership with TriNet, and we have other companies that are specific to, like, we have safety partners, right, as a New York Bio member, and they literally focus on workplace safety. So, I mean, we have all of these great resources within our community, which makes it, arguably like one of the best life sciences communities in the country. Shocker that I would think that. Thank you both for joining us today. For those of you who tuned in and are learning about TriNet and our partnership for the first time, we'll have a link on our website that details our partnership and the benefits to New York Bio members. So please check that out. Maria, Darby, thank you so much for joining us. I know I learned some things about hiring practices, and not the least of which that there were 4 truths we discussed today. So thank you all for joining us. We hope you will join us next week. We're going to follow it up with another webinar. We're hosting the Pfizer vaccine team. So we have the head of Pfizer's North America vaccines, as well as the head of their Pearl River research facility. So we're going to learn about developing COVID vaccines in New York from Pfizer and what they've been doing on the distribution. So thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks so much,
Take care.
everyone.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning in to New York Bio's virtual breakfast series. Join us every Tuesday at 9 a.m. for more discussions with leaders from across the healthcare spectrum. For more information on New York Bio, please visit us at www.newyorkbio.org.